Here is today's featured headline in space. A reported close approach between a SpaceX Starlink satellite and a payload from a Chinese launch highlighted the continued challenges of coordinating space operations. Today is December 16th, 2025, and you're listening to Space News First Up. Here are today's other top headlines. Problems with a NASA Mars orbiter that has been out of contact for 10 days may be more serious than first thought. The Space Force is using a competition to encourage new uses of AI within the service. NASA intends to test the use of SpaceX's Starshield network to support the Deep Space Network. GomSpace won a contract from a startup to provide a key subsystem for a planned data relay satellite. And Aerodrive, a Stanford University spin-off developing software and hardware for satellite autonomy, raised $5.3 million.
First Up is produced by Space News, the industry standard for professional space journalism. Visit spacenews.com for breaking news, policy updates, and original analysis.
We begin today with news that a reported close approach between a SpaceX Starlink satellite and a payload from a Chinese launch highlighted the continued challenges of coordinating space operations. A SpaceX executive said late Friday that a satellite from a Kinetica 1 launch 2 days earlier passed within 200 meters of a Starlink satellite. CAS Space, the Chinese launch operator, said it would look into the incident but noted it took place long after the launch operations ended. Commercial space situational awareness firms did not publicly confirm the close approach. The incident comes after the Chinese government appeared to be more willing to coordinate satellite operations, including potential conjunctions with NASA and Western satellite companies. Problems with a NASA Mars orbiter that has been out of contact for 10 days may be more serious than first thought. NASA said Monday it has yet to restore contact with the Maven spacecraft, which did not resume communications after going behind Mars as seen from Earth on December 6th. In an update Monday, NASA said that a brief fragment of tracking data received as part of a radio science experiment the day contact was lost showed that the spacecraft appeared to be spinning and was not in its planned orbit. That has led to speculation that the spacecraft suffered an energetic event of some kind, like a burst tank or propellant line, that could spin the spacecraft and impart thrust. NASA said it is continuing efforts to restore contact, but that will be hampered by a solar conjunction in early January when Mars goes behind the Sun, as seen from Earth, disrupting communications. The Space Force is using a competition to encourage new uses of AI within the service. An AI-powered onboarding assistant designed to help new Space Force members navigate the earliest stages of the service won the U.S. Space Force's annual AI Challenge, officials announced last week. The Space Force AI Challenge is an annual competition intended to accelerate the development and adoption of AI tools that address concrete problems facing the service, with 29 teams participating in this year's competition. Speaking at the Space Power Conference last week, Air Force Secretary Troy Mink called on the service to build AI literacy inside the force, rather than relying primarily on contractors for AI-driven solutions. NASA intends to test the use of SpaceX's Starshield network to support the Deep Space Network. In a procurement filing last week, the company said it planned to buy several Starshield terminals and data subscriptions from SpaceX to enhance the resiliency and diversity of existing fiber optic links between the 3 DSN sites in Australia, California, and Spain. Starshield is an offshoot of SpaceX's Starlink constellation designed to provide communications, imaging, and other services, primarily for national security customers. The limited information Starlink has disclosed about Starshield emphasizes secure communications. NASA has not previously discussed using Starshield, but is testing the use of commercial Starlink services to support data relay for satellites in Earth orbit. GomSpace won a contract from a startup to provide a key subsystem for a planned data relay satellite. GomSpace will provide the radio frequency subsystem for interoperability protocol over satellite, technology demonstration mission, IPOS TDSM, a 3U CubeSat being built by Apple for launch next year. The CubeSat will test how signals can be received from other low Earth orbit spacecraft and forwarded to the ground. and is a precursor of a constellation of larger spacecraft to provide data relay services. Drive, a Stanford University spin-off developing software and hardware for satellite autonomy, raised $5.3 million. The seed round, announced Tuesday, was led by Hackstack Ventures with participation from several other investors. The investment will help Drive accelerate development of hardware, including cameras and optics for space situational awareness in low Earth, geostationary orbit, and beyond Earth orbit. Drive is developing a software-hardware module leveraging AI to make satellites autonomous and aware of their surroundings.
Discover your next mission in the space industry with the Space News Job Exchange. Visit jobs.spacenews.com to find top aerospace roles and connect with leading employers. And for employers, use discount code JOBEX for 15% off your next purchase.
In other news, Space.com reports that United Launch Alliance launched another set of satellites for Amazon's broadband constellation early Tuesday. An Atlas V lifted off from Cape Canaveral at 3:28 a.m. Eastern and put 27 Amazon LEO satellites into orbit. This was the fourth Atlas launch of operational satellites for Amazon LEO, the constellation formerly known as Project Kuiper. There are now 180 Amazon LEO satellites in orbit, just over 5% of the planned constellation of more than 3,200 satellites. China launched a remote sensing satellite late Monday. A Long March 4B lifted off at 10:17 p.m. Eastern from the Taiyuan Satellite Launch Center. It placed into orbit Ziyuan 304, a satellite part of a long-standing national civil space infrastructure program. It carries a stereo mapping camera, a multispectral camera, and a laser altimeter for use in natural resource applications.
Share your company's news with the entire space industry through Stellar Dispatch, the press release service from Space News. Learn more and use discount code SD2106 for 15% off when you submit yours at spacenews.com/stellardispatch.
Spaceflight Now reports that Rocket Lab announced, and then scrubbed, an Electron launch Monday. The company called off the Electron launch of the NeonSat-1A spacecraft on an Electron from New Zealand after aborting the liftoff immediately after engine ignition. Rocket Lab said that out-of-family data from a sensor triggered the abort and did not announce a new launch date. Rocket Lab announced the launch earlier in the day after calling off a first launch attempt last week. A startup spun out of the University of California is finding space applications for its technology to damp vibrations. Metaseismic uses AI to create materials to mitigate vibration and shock, initially to protect electronics from earthquakes. The company, though, found a new application for its material through testing with NASA, which found that it could damp launch vibrations on spacecraft components. The company tested the material at the Marshall Space Flight Center through a Space Act agreement. VAST is seeking research proposals for its first commercial space station. The company announced Monday a request for proposals for ground and space-based research projects for the Haven 1 station, set to launch next year. The company says the lab on Haven 1 can support research in areas ranging from pharmaceutical development to plant growth and human health. The company recently hired as its principal scientist Megan Everett, former NASA ISS Deputy Program Scientist, to develop a robust multidisciplinary research portfolio for Haven 1 and future stations. Virgin Galactic plans to work with Lawrence Livermore National Lab on additional uses of the company's aircraft. Virgin said Monday it will study how to incorporate Livermore National Lab sensors on its launch vehicles, the term the company uses for the aircraft that take its suborbital spaceplanes aloft. Virgin has previously said it is exploring other uses for such aircraft, noting their capabilities to take heavy payloads to high altitudes for potentially long-endurance flights.